esteemed guests to the stage.
Just a word, Sister Helen, Prejean. I'm going to give Paul time to learn how to pronounce Prejean. I'm from Louisiana. It's okay, it goes Prejean. He's doing his best. So tonight they communicated with each other and stirring the pot. Story told in the Gospel of John that there would be angels that would come and stir the pool. And the first one to get the pool after the pool was stirred by the angels would be healed. Tonight we're going to be stirring the pot. And I want to just call attention that we're gathered here in this space. Us, the public, us, the citizens, us, the members of this country who care about our people and about justice. And I'm excited. Did you cough into your microphone? I'm trying to train this for me. That there will be a communication between these two artists. I'm a moderator. They decided they needed a nun to come in to moderate for me. And this unbelievable artist to me that I just met for the first time today. Paul gave us this question, or somebody from the community gave us this question. It's a trick question, but it's what we're going to use to stir the pot. And we're going to give Žižek 5 minutes to respond. His opening salvo, stirring the pot, and then to Janine. And the question is, how do we reasonably believe in God? You're on, sir.
Thank you, madam. And I like your family name, Prejean.
Yeah.
John, Gospel, before. Because in my version of the Bible, Gospel of John is out. I reading Gospel, but that's another story. Okay. So you have the correct family name. Okay. Yeah. No, let me begin very seriously. I think that our very unfortunate daily practice gives us an answer to this question, which is a very sad answer. How to reasonably believe in God, so that you don't believe personally, existentially, but you transfer this belief onto another. This is, I think, how most of us, how we believe today. Let me take Christmas. If you ask parents, do you believe in Santa Claus? They will tell you, no, I'm not crazy, I buy the present. Then you ask children, they will tell you, no, I'm not crazy, but I pretend to so that I don't hurt my parents and get the presents and so on and so on. This is how, there are beliefs which are practiced, although no one in first person believes in them. And I think this is the truth of our solid, cynical era. Let me just conclude this first point, tell you a story which most of you probably already know, but I think it's the best formula of how ideology functions today. The story concerns Niels Bohr of Copenhagen. He had in his house in the countryside at the entrance door a horseshoe, a precious item allegedly preventing evil spirits to enter the house. A friend visited him there and asked him, but you are a scientist, do you believe in this bullshit? Why do you have this there? Niels Bohr answered, I'm not crazy, I'm a scientist, I don't believe in it. Then friend again asked the question, but why do you have it there? Niels Bohr, he was a leader of Kierkegaard. He answered, I don't believe in it, but I have it there because I was told that it works even if you don't believe. That's ideology. Belief without a belief. Now I will bring you even worse news. Now you say, yes, but what about the inner belief intensity of contact with God. There, when somebody mentions this, I claim Christian answer is, grab your luggage, run away. Because the most impressive spiritual experiences of my life are those where I learned how people who undoubtedly had the most sincere, intense personal experience of, however you call it, nirvana, meditation, contact with the divine, were not only able to do horrible things, but use this spiritual experience to justify doing these things. Read a wonderful book. Brian Victoria is the author, himself a Zen Buddhist monk, Zen at War, where he describes how not only did practically the entire Japanese Zen establishment support the Japanese military invasion of China and so on, but justified it with wonderful terms, and they say, are you afraid of having someone to death or killing him? This is because you are still caught in the false realm of appearances. If you enter nirvana, you know there is no reality, just flux of appearances, and it's not you who is killing the enemy. The world is just the flow of appearances where your knife dances in the air and somehow gets stuck into the enemy and so on. In Europe, we have the same. Père Joseph, the counselor of Cardinal Richelieu, one of the most bloodless murderers of European history, at the same time he wrote the best mystical meditation at the level of Saint Teresa and so on and so on. Or, terrifying example, let's mention Reinhard Heydrich, you know, Holocaust author, but do you know that, and I find this so unacceptable indeed, evening after the hard work done, he gathered with his friends. They formed a string quartet and they played late Beethoven's string quartet. Is there something obscene in it? Now, was there my hope? There is hope, but I have a thought I was given a sign, so we go on. Maybe, first maybe there will be time for good news later. Thank you very much.
Great opening salvo, sir. You have stirred the pot, sir. And for sure you introduced the ideology and the way we think or even meditate about things that causes harm. And now we move from the fire hose to the well. Our artist here, Janine. Janine, what have you got to say to us?
I think you should grab your suitcase and run. I guess before I begin, I just want to take a moment of gratitude. My dad's words are ringing in my ears because every time he saw something of beauty or wonder, whether he was, filleting a fish and showing me the organs of the fish or a flower blossoming, he would say, there must be a God. And I look at myself here between the two of you in this amazing place, and I think, Dad, maybe you're right. There must be a God. So this question, how to reasonably believe in God. So Sister Helen pointed out the how to, which is an interesting thing to focus on because we know that God is not reasonable. So I guess I would like to focus on how to unreasonably believe in God. Let me just give a little bit of my background. I grew up with Catholicism, went to an all-girls school with nuns into high school, and decided that I should, with my questions about Catholicism, go to other religions to try to see what I could find there. And I'm from the Prejean, and so underneath that Catholicism is syncretism. So I'm not a critical thinker. I'm not looking for difference. I'm looking for connection. And I go like any good artist, everywhere I can to try to pull desperate things together and make sense of the world. At 33, I got cancer, and I realized that I was unprepared to die well. And I started to look for someone to talk to me about that, and I found my way to Buddhism, because it was a place where people were interested in talking about it, and it was a way to practice dying. And then I found myself in a dance class in New York City. It's called the Five Rhythms. It was started by Gabriel Roth in the 70s, and it is based on different forms of ecstatic dance practices from different cultures. And in that class, I had the closest experience that I've ever had to something one might call spiritual. I think that I was battling my own relationship with my body. Those of you that know my work, my body is my tool. And I realized that the spirit is deeply sensual, and that I could come to some feeling of that through the experience of my body. So I thought that the best thing I could offer here is my body. And I thought I would show you a little bit of that practice, and not as anything performative, but more as a kind of offering of how to, in the only way I know how. And it's a bit of a paradox to show you this, because it's like saying I'm going to teach you how to meditate and just sitting here. It wouldn't make sense, because you wouldn't know what was going on inside. So what I'm going to try to do is speak to you as to what is going on inside, and maybe it'll make some kind of sense.
Thank you.
Sure. So it's called the Five Rhythms, and we do this for about 2 hours at a time. I do it several times a week, and I just follow these rhythms as a kind of map, which the experience of those rhythms I bring to the world. So the first rhythm is flowing, and flowing is about receptivity. It's about feet and the ground. It's about finding myself in space and in relation. And Gabriel says it's the female rhythm, which is maybe problematic. And then the second rhythm is staccato. And staccato might be Slavoj rhythm. It's about being direct. It's about communication. It's about the to-do list. And then something happens when you take staccato and you put it together with flowing. Chaos happens. And when chaos happens, it's really hard to talk. And you know why it's hard to talk? Because mind, when you let go of the head, doesn't have language. But the mind slips down into the body, and then the body starts to think. And when you're in a room of 100 people doing this, nobody is hitting each other, because you fall into another kind of weirdness. Chaos is cathartic. Chaos is the soup of creativity. But after that release comes lyrical. And lyrical is expression. Lyrical is shape-shifting. With lyrical, things change. Lyrical creates possibility. And then there's stillness. And stillness is about the breath. It's about taking all of those rhythms into the body. All those molecules shaken up. We're still moving in there. And you're being danced. So something happens in a room of 100 people when you're doing that, is that you find a connection. A connection that I can't quite describe. The only thing I can say is maybe it's like group dreaming. That's it. Thank you.
So we have ideas, ideology, meditation in religion that can lead to brutality. We have movement, dance, the body, embodiment. Your response to it, and then we can move to another part.
Oh, nobody will like this response. Please, it will sound aggressive, but I mean this very seriously and very literally. Imagine I read in the history of Jews in Russia a description of a pogrom. I'm sorry to say it fits your desk. Pogrom, countries killing apart Jews. They were definitely in the transition state, stepping on them, they felt like one, another dimension was there, and so on. Now, to avoid any misunderstanding, I'm not saying you are in any way justifying that or whatever. I'm just saying that what you just described can be a very authentic experience. I absolutely don't doubt that. I'm just saying that there is an immanent ethical dimension missing, and all the desperate attempts, for example, of Buddhism, to write into it this ethical dimension. They say, listen, let me quote one who was a big apologist of Japanese militarism, also and later hippie apologist, Daisuke Seitaro Suzuki. Here this was honest. He said, Zen Buddhist meditation is a technique. It has no ethical and political consequences. You can be a communist, a fascist, a liberal, and so on. That's all I'm saying. So again, while I absolutely confirm the authenticity of what you played here, my idea of ethics is, on the contrary, more like Alcoholics Anonymous ethics. Fake it till you make it. It happens outside. I think that if we turn into ourselves and have intense experiences and so on, the lesson of psychoanalysis is that, as a rule, they are allowed. Or, to put it even in more aggressive terms, one of the most stupid proverbs, and you, Paul, mentioned wisdom proverbs, that I know is the famous multicultural proverb, Emily is someone to whose story we were not ready to listen. Like, Emily, you objectify him, her, but then if you listen to his side of the story, you will see they are also humans, they have their own myths, tales, and so on. Well, my answer is, they, like us, of course they have, but they mostly serve what? To cover up the horrors that they are doing. For example, whenever somebody tells me this, no, don't objectify the enemy, listen to him. My brutal answer is, so Hitler was our enemy because we were not ready to open ourselves to listen to him. No, the more you listen to somebody like Hitler, the more you see that he really is an enemy. There are enemies. So the second distinction, and I think I'm here a Christian. For me, the greatness of Christianity is precisely celebrating division, distinction, not all unity. For me, the mega revolution of Christianity is what? Is that not only are we separated from God, but God is separated from himself, as my favorite theology is Liberty Chester himself. In all other religions you have atheists, very big people who don't believe in God. Only in Christianity you have, the Eli, Lama, Sabachthani, Father, White River, you have God himself who for a moment doesn't believe in himself. This is the ultimate shock of Christianity. Something tremendous happens at that moment on the cross. And that moment for me is not just a sad moment. It's a moment when freedom explodes. But maybe I talk too much, and please counterattack and we go on.
There must be another way between an attack and counterattack.
What? Compromise. Compromise.
I told you it's going to be a wild ride.
To quote to a certain guy that you know very well, I came here not to bring peace,
But the sword.
but the sword. That's what you guys, sorry.
Yeah.
And incidentally, how do you eat that life?
Yeah, but before we come to me, I'm like, wait. I gotta tell you, I'm looking out for Janine in this conversation. All right.
Please come to that. And I'm sorry, I just wanted to provoke you to
So, you're going to have to do better than that to provoke. But anyway,
this is the most aggressive thing.
so, can I analyze the analyst a little bit? If you think about rhythms as a map, when the reason I love to hear you speak is that you seem to be a master at creating chaos. You say something to us and you blow our minds. And then it creates a kind of chaos in the thinking, and then you go into lyrical and you start to pick it apart. And you start to take this statement, which is so provocative, and build. And by the end, we come around. So if we just look at this as an app, I feel like you do that over and over to us in your philosophy. And I feel that you're trying to wake us up. So that was a personal experience for me, but I just want to use it as an example of the way that I can use that to approach and understand the world and make sense of it.
Why should we
Why should it make sense? Well, that's the thing, is that I really do want to believe in God.
This is for me, now we will change roles. This is to me a way to atheist say.
It's a
The
way to
moment you put it in this way, I want to believe in God. It means A, you don't believe in God, and B, it implies that it has something to do with your will to believe in God or not.
And I'm thinking of it is that I want to hold on to my doubt.
That's a good sense. Maybe what you are in this, I want to believe in God. You know, and again, here I agree with you. It may appear that you really want to come to God, but what it is, as you put it very nicely, what you really enjoy is that moment of doubt, you know, like I'm not yet there. Yeah, I want to be there, but not yet, but a little bit postponed and so on and so on, you know. And that's what psychoanalysis is not as a primitive psychological reduction and so on, reduction can thematize very nicely how often when we want something, we at the same time want the obstacle to that. And the true pleasure is the obstacle. Sorry.
Can we just say something? Does doubt always enter in when we're thinking? I mean, you know, it's Descartes' famous thing. What can I absolutely be sure of? Well, I doubt this, but I do not doubt that I, doubter, am doubting. So we're in reasoning when we're doing that. There are some things, are there not, when an artist gets the flow of the painting, it just follows like a current. And maybe I'm getting it, but Janine, you're bringing us into the flow, and how to be in flow and to be embodied. I spend a lot of time in my head. I'm always trying to figure things out. And how do we strategize? How do we do this in my head? But when we get into the flow, is that what you're about, Janine? And it's not unthinking, it's not against reason, is it? It's maybe in another place.
I think when we bring up the notion of doubt, and it makes me, sorry to bring up Buddhism, but it makes me think about the don't know mind, the idea of not knowing. And I guess I would like to talk about surrender. Because I think that we're terrified of that notion, and I think when we start to talk about certain ideas of faith, it inevitably comes up. And I think as a culture, we confuse submission with surrender.
Let me add this, Janine, that in the mysticism, in the tradition of Christianity, the cloud of unknowing, we get into clouds of unknowing. There's so many things we don't know, even when we love someone deeply, and they say, but you don't really know me. So now you're moving us to what does it mean to surrender, and we're terrified of surrender. So explore that with us, Lord.
So if we go back to the notion of how to, if at any point when I feel like I am touching, I don't know what to call this now, a spiritual space, I have the same dilemma. And you might be able to help me with this, but it's a feeling of disintegration, a feeling of being large and absolutely connected. And in the enormity of that, I feel my ego comes in and makes me feel very small, like I'm not allowed to have that feeling, or that's dangerous, or I might die.
So part of surrender is that feeling of
somewhere it's connected to humility. And I think that that's what's the scary thing for the culture, because to admit to that humility might mean that you're submissive, and that would be dangerous. People would take advantage of you.
Here, okay, let me make some point. First, I want to avoid this idea here, probably we all agree that I'm a philosopher celebrating doubt irrationally. No! Even to put it in brutal political terms. Maybe one of the signs of progress, if there is such a thing, is that certain things should be, which were once doubted, you can read for it again, should be dogmatically accepted. And when people start to reason about that, it's a regression. For example, would you like to live in a society where the right of men to rape women is something open to doubt, we should reason about it? No, I would like to live in a society where this is kind of automatically, dogmatically accepted. So if somebody comes and says, that maybe women secretly want it, it simply appears as an evil. You don't even argue. That's the first point. Second point. But this is in no way a criticism of you. I just want to play you against yourself. Listen, you said flux and so on. But what you effectively did here to save this flux, first, you needed a secluded place of your own. You were not among them. To create this space of flux, you needed a very precise limitation. Point two. Obviously, you have to put a lot of self-control work into this and so on and so on. So I want to emphasize this element that art for me is never just surrender. It's a surrender based on a very hard work of self-control, self-limitation, and so on and so on. The last point, what you, Sister Helen, who knows that we should remain Prejean before St. John, that you don't agree. It's wonderful what you said about cloud and so on. But would you agree that in Christianity, and that's for me the big lesson of truly authentic great Christian mystics, this cloud concerns also God Himself. Which is why, for me, maybe you find this problematic, the big insight of Christian mysticism is that, all those metaphors, when we reflect on God, God is looking at Himself through us, which is why incarnation of Christ. It's not just God is safely up there, sending a messenger down, okay guys, this time it failed, come back to me, Jesus will try again. But something tremendous, a self-division, happens in God Himself. So this idea that of an event, a doubt, a cloud, an unfinished, non-finished character of God Himself, this is what I find the best in Christian mysticism. And here I think, I will not bore you now with it, I think although, it's easy to say all mysticism is there, just different names for the same basic experience, it doesn't really matter. No, there is something very specific, at least in the mature Christian mysticism from Meister Eckhart onwards and so on and so on. It's a dimension which I doubt if you simply find it in other mysticisms.
I want to respond to that, Antoni.
Finally, we provoke you. You will not just say mediator.
It was never safe to be up here, I have to tell you that.
So you will surrender.
No. See, the thing is, and I pursue mysticism seriously as a Catholic nun. I've learned to pray in one with God. But when it's grounded in Christianity and Jesus, finally, Jesus said, what you do to the least of mine, you do to me, the embodiment of God, especially in the suffering, vulnerable ones among us. That grounds God for us, the followers of Jesus in His way. And so when we make statements about it is really God, we don't know what we mean when we use the word God. Just pick your placeholder name with a big glowing thing in the middle. When we say God, we get on our knees and fall for mystery. I don't know. But I know the way of Jesus, and whatever you do to these, the least of mine, you do. And so when St. Francis followed it, when Paul fell off his horse, why are you persecuting me? That connection with each other. And it has something to do, it has everything to do with love or not loving and learning to love generously. But when we go into mysticism of the clouds and God and the divisions of God and all that, I get lost. I just start going down. So Janine, what do you think? Or what do you feel? Or what do you flow?
What do you think you feel?
What do I think?
Now flow into what you feel.
So the God that doubts is a reflection of us.
Not of God himself, or itself, or herself.
That's going to come on your bases now. You don't want to get trouble.
Right, so are we looking for a reflection of ourselves in this God, or are we looking for other? Are we looking for all powerful? You understand what I'm asking?
Yes.
You don't usually go quiet.
I already talked too much.
Yeah, right.
No, because you know, why do you always talk about you and then God? What intrigues me, and that was what I already feel so strongly in somebody like Meister Eckhart. Not what is God for us and all this stuff, we just project our traumas onto God, but what are we for God? You know, I like this crazy reading that God had to create humanity to settle scores in himself, to complete himself in a way.
Yes.
And that for me, maybe in a not fully thinking way, the deepest insight and that's how I would read what you said. What happens here? How we treat the poor guy there, miserable. This is something that God is not up there and, oh, you did a good thing. It directly concerns God himself, which is why I'm now proposing never stop. I know you already have prepared. You know, we have body language. Yes, which is 1 minute more, you are there. Okay, you know, the way I read it is that in other religions, predominantly, God is up there or somewhere else, and without effort, we have to, through, I don't know, practice, pray, whatever, to come close to Him. In Christianity, something extraordinary happens. I don't identify with God in that way, but precisely when I feel totally abandoned by God alone. At that point, I'm what with Jesus Christ was also about. It's a totally unique idea. Surprise, I stop.
Yeah. No, two interesting things here. There's a theologian by the name of Bonaventure. It said God overflowed into creation. What did this thing come down to redeem? We're going to send Jesus. People have messed it up. We're going to come down and redeem. That's why the overflowing nature of love. God overflows into us. And you said it in the way of there was a part of God that had to come in us. There's a part of God incomplete. You've had a whole group of German theologians who talk about the suffering of God, a God who suffers, and that's why Jesus is so important for us. And the people that I accompany on death row, the victims' families who in their suffering, it's a cross that because it's a suffering God. A God who emptied himself, as Paul said, he emptied being God and became in the form of a slave, even to the point of crucifixion. So we have suffering. that God's not removed and in himself. And so you are pointing to that also, Janine. See, the surrender, you had cancer. You had cancer. And that's one of the scariest words I think in the English language about our bodies, ourself. And you dealt with that. That's a poor word, dealt. But you entered into that.
Right. I entered into my immortality. I had to look at that directly.
You entered into mortality.
The immortality, my mortality. And I had to figure out, I had to make some sense of it. If it's going to be over for all of us, what happens then?
And can you take us there and share that with us? You went into, that's such a huge thing.
Well, I think the only way to die well is to practice dying.
Practice dying.
On a daily basis.
Want to say a little more about that? The practice dying on a daily basis?
It's the practice of continuing letting go over and over again.
Do we just let it go, or are we also, can you let go without?
Well, when you let go, something else happens. Correct. But I do think that I want to clear something away, which is the God, the Father, because we're talking about reflection and up there, and we have the Father and the Son, and we need to have you talk about the Holy Spirit. So I think both you and I have a thing for the Holy Spirit. And I think that it's because, for me, I think different for you is the gender thing. And the gender, that God is the Father, and then we have this relationship between the Father and the Son, and I think we also need to talk about the Virgin Mary, given the idea of empathy.
Take us into the Virgin Mary.
Maybe I could talk about a work on. If you pick up your pamphlet, could somebody hand Slavoj pamphlet so you can see what I'm talking about? This is a work that I made. I was actually dancing. And I had my eyes closed and my feet carried me over to an older woman in the room, and we started to dance, and that older woman was dancing to the slow beat, and I was doing this dance to the fast beat, and I had this image, this vision that came to me that I was a spy building a web. And at the same time of my life, I was reading Winnicott. And I was thinking about trying to be a good mother. And I got very interested in the notion of a holding environment. And there's something very curious about the love of a mother versus erotic love, let's say. In erotic love, two bodies try to become one. They try to come together. In maternal love, one body becomes two. And the way Winnicott talked about it is he talked very much about a good enough mother. The idea that the loving mother was there, but every chance that she had, whenever the child was unfolding, the mother would recede. And I thought it was very interesting that the measure of my love was my ability to recede. And so I made this image. I decided that I wanted a spider to make a web on my body. And so I called up a bunch of spider experts, and they were like, I don't think so. The warmth of your body, and can you stay still? It'll take a whole night to make a web. And, but I was very determined, and I had a lot of pride. I'm a performance artist, and I'm like, I can stay there all night until the spider makes its web. And then I decided I needed a way to contain the spiders. What was going to happen? The spider's going to run off and make a web somewhere else. And that I needed somehow to keep the spider contained to make this web. And then I got afraid that I couldn't stand up all night, so I started calling some people who work with harnesses. So I thought I would harness myself up, stand for the night, have the web be made, and remove the harness. And the guy, I was asking on the phone, and the guy said, "Listen, lady, I deal with a lot of these things, just tell me what you're doing." And so I explained the spider story, and he gave me this harness, which was actually used in the movies when there's an explosion and the body has to go back with that. So this harness had ropes going at all ends, and I looked at it and I was like, that's a web. So I thought about having a web within a web, and then I thought, what about a house within a house? And so what I decided to do was to have that spider make a web in the house, and then I made a house so I could put it onto my body. And when that idea came, the image of, I'm sure you know this image, the famous one is Piero della Francesca, and it's the Madonna of Mercy. And the Madonna of Mercy, it's a magnificent image because the Madonna is standing with the utmost strength, almost like a column, and she's holding open her mantle, and she has the mankind enveloped in her mantle. And I put that in the program tonight because we're in this space. And what does it mean to provide space? And so I was very interested in the Virgin Mary because she was human. So she has this weird status between God and human, and she's a complicated character because she has a virgin birth. People think the Immaculate Conception is Jesus, but it's actually her conception. She ascends into heaven, so she doesn't get to die. She doesn't really get to have sex. The only thing she gets to do is nurse her baby, the only bodily thing. So for me, it was a complicated, the only example I had in the Catholic Church to hold on to, but it was a complicated example. So I'm very interested in this kind of love of receiving, and how maybe I could read a quote and then we could talk about love. This is a quote, and this is more about the love of the other as opposed to maternal love. It's Scott Packer wrote it. What happens over many years of loving is a gradual and progressive enlargement of the self, an incorporation within of the world without, and a growth. A stretching and a thinning of our ego boundaries. And as our ego boundaries become blurred, we experience the same sort of feeling of ecstasy that we have when our ego boundaries partially collapse and we fall in love. Only instead of merging temporarily and unrealistically with a single beloved object, we have merged realistically and more permanently with much of the world. So the red sun has been up for a long time.
Okay, I will try to be very brief. First, about, I would like to know, but we don't have time now, just if we were all the time, more about what you call practicing dying every day, because this seems to me very close to maybe unconsciously cheating, like all this, it's a kind of domestication, like, oh, it's not a big problem, I do it every day, you know, I practice it again and again, but as if, and I'm constantly obscene here, but so that you will get the point, as if Jesus Christ, knowing that, he will go, let's practice a year before, from when he was 30, let's practice crucifixion, you know, to make it easier, so it's a problem for me. Second point, where a little bit disagree, yeah.
So my biggest fear is that I might die too quickly because I won't be able to have the experience of dying. That doesn't mean I'm not afraid to die, but it seems like one of the biggest experiences we get in life. So I was looking for a way to be present in the process of dying, which we're all doing right now.
That's for me. Okay, we will have to go. Second point, when you said about erotic love to merging into one, to really think this, I think that in authentic erotic love, it's precisely this dimension of cloud and so on. In proper erotic love, I think even, it's not, oh my God, let's embrace, let's become one. No, the other remains radically the other. But more important point to conclude, what both of you said about what's the correct English? Holy Ghost or Holy Spirit? Okay, both, whatever. I think this is the crucial point. It all begins for me with, I praise it, for me, the first book of critique of ideology, the book of Job. Read it carefully, you know what happens there. Okay, all the calamities fall upon Job, and what happens there? 3 or 4, I think 3 theological friends come, and each of them is a model of ideology. He tries to patch up some meaning for it. One says, oh, deep into yourself, you must have done something wrong. The second one says something like, maybe it's not God testing you. And the greatest of Job is that he doesn't accept this. And then the miracle is unique moment. Precisely in contrast to most of other religions, where God is usually evoked precisely to justify suffering. You know, this is the most disgusting metaphor. My God, if I were to be in medieval times, I would burn people for that. You know when they say, but our suffering is just like a stain on a picture. If you look closely at it, it's just a blur. From a proper distance, it contributes to humanity. I think that precisely the lesson of Book of Job is not, remember, then God comes and basically says everything that Job said was right. He totally discards the 3 ideologies. But then comes the absolute. I follow here my beloved liberty Chester. You know, then Job nonetheless asks God, but wait a minute, but what was nonetheless then the point of my suffering? And then God's answer, all that evocation of monsters and so on, is usually read as the ultimate divine arrogance. Who are you to doubt we are at different levels? Chester proposes an extraordinary reading, but he said that God's answer is basically, you think you are in trouble, but look at the whole world that I created is one big mess. So I think, based on this, I will jump quickly. Holy Spirit is for me something radically new, novelty of Christianity. One would have accepted after Father and Son, some kind of synthesis or whatever, but no, as Helen, my favorite philosopher, put it, what dies on the cross is not just a representative of God, but God Himself. Which God? Precisely that God which provides ultimate meaning, that false God which says, don't worry, a wise guy out there will take care of things, will finish well, and so on and so on. No, what we have at the end is Holy Ghost. And what is Holy Spirit or Holy Ghost? It's a egalitarian community. You know, when you know, when his family comes to Christ, want to visit him, and Christ says, but here, he is with believers. Here, this is my family. Yeah. I don't think we should read this as simply, you have literally to hate your mother and father. No. You have, I think that when Christ evokes all these family relations, he means simply the existing hierarchic, non-egalitarian structure. The tremendous knowledge of Holy Spirit for me is that an authentic egalitarian structure, social body, social space is possible here. This is the space of freedom. That's why in my reading, this is already the second coming. We don't need to wait for, when, as Christ says, my God, when the two of you love each other, I am here. Which is why I find it horrible when people read this, if you don't hate your mother, father, blah, 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 they try to relativize it. As if God is saying, you can love them, but you should love me more. That's an obscenity. No, you should love whom you love without restraint, because in that love God is here. This would be my Christian atheism, and you can also see in what sense. The authentic one. Well, Communist Party is for me one of the possible names for Holy Spirit. So let me stop. Thank you very much.
I just want to respond to something in there in Geneva, invite you, that spirit in us now, egalitarian, everybody has a place at the table.
Yeah.
We can be brothers and sisters and family.
We can.
And it's happening now. You don't have to wait.
Or in Buddhism, you don't have to pass in something about yourself.
See, sometimes he dances too. He stays sitting, but all of his dances just happen.
I cannot wait when I take power with my communist fellows.
The great thing, I just want to do this as an aside, but didn't want to get this little epilogue about Job, is to have things in common and to share in common and not just keep aggrandizing our private property and squeezing other people out is the heart, I think, of what Jesus is about, and that's, I think, what is why the whole idea of communism is that we will have something in common together as a people. But the epilogue to Job, I just found this out about Robert Frost wrote about when, you know what's missing in the book of Job is, when is God going to apologize to Job because what caused all those troubles for Job? Remember the beginning of the story? He made a bet with the devil. I can test this man, he's still going to believe me. He put Job through all that. And Robert Frost, the poet, said, where's the part where God's going to apologize to Job? Job, I got you in all this because I'm in the bed with the devil. I'm sorry. That's one of the
death of Jesus Christ. That would be my mega answer. You have to read the book of Job retroactively from.
And the thing is, too, if I may just say this one thing about hate your brother, you don't take those words literally, hate. You got to get it from the spiritual meaning of the gospel. That when you give your life over to something, and if you marry somebody, you can't keep your mom and your daddy there. You can't keep them, and you have to let them go. Hate doesn't mean you're going to hate your mom and dad so you only love God. Excuse me, but I just want to do that little interpretation.
I love what you said, because this means separation is also necessary. It's not we will all flow together. No?
We never going to flow together. We're two individuals to be able to do that. Janine.
Yes, so when I lived with the Shakers, I said to them, what about this celibacy thing? You know, why do you think that you can love God more if you make that choice? And they said to me, we want to love all people equally.
We want to love all people equally for souls.
And if we pair off, if we love our husband more than others, then we will be able to And that's what's interesting about the image of the mother in terms of unconditional love, because she loves all her children equally. But I do want to talk about this idea that with erotic love, we're separate. And maybe I can use another work as an example. If you look here, you'll see a piece that I made that are two rib cages. And I was thinking about my sense of separateness and what would be the ultimate connection. And I was thinking about if I could hug you fully and I didn't have the problem of us being separate, that our ribs would be able to come into each other like that. And so I took two rib cages and I fused them together, and then I walked around with this object trying to think about what it was, and I suddenly turned it over and I realized I had made a basket. And if you look at the image closely, there's a space that the two ribs make when they come together. And so I was thinking about that erotic love as a potential space that what we do, I love the term making love, not having sex, but that we make something when we come together. And we make something bigger than ourselves.
But that's what we make, precisely the space.
The space.
So that we are not crushed.
It's about space. It's about always sculpting the space in between.
Yeah.
In the flow of us in this conversation, I'm also looking at the time. Who's helping us with the time?
It's time.
It's time. It's time. So we're going to have a little break before the end, just the questions that you have. But we want to ask you to just lead us into a short, it'll be short, but just have silence and breathing, because there's been a lot of talking and you've had to listen. So Janine, if you could just take us into a meditation together as a group in this space, we will go into this silence.
So we thought it would be nice to just be together. So I'm going to invite you to put both feet on the ground and just feel the ground. And you can close your eyes. And when you feel the ground, in your mind's eye, realize that ground connects all our feet to each other. And now I'm going to invite you to send some roots out through your toes, down through the foundation of St. John Divine, into the dirt below it. And maybe you'll run into someone else's toe roots, and if you do, you can rub up against them. You can entwine, or you can go on your merry way to find some water. And now I'm going to invite you to send, I know there's a lot of yogis in the room, they tell you to send a thread up from the crown of your head. So straighten up your back and see your vertebrae as pearls on that string. And when that string hits the ceiling, let it move across the ceiling and begin to weave with the other people in the room. And as you see in your mind's eye that weaving, make it whatever image comforts you. Whether it be a landscape or a rock or just the in and out. See your string going in and out, over and under. And now follow your string back down to your head and go into your body and see if you can find a still point. For some of you, that still point may be your third eye. It may be your heart. For some of you, it's your gut. For some, it may be the attention. but stating that it's still one.
Thank you.
There are 5 really good questions. We only have a few minutes, but I want to honor each of the questions and I'm going to throw them all out. And then because I've got the power, because I'm the moderator, I'll choose one and y'all can't be mad. It seems the right has co-opted religiosity. What would it look like for leftist, social, and political forces to claim religiosity today? Really something we need to do. For Janine and Žižek, what do you think happens after we die? We know we don't have time to deal with that much. What are we going to talk about when we move to say there is a God or there is not a God? You can tell what we are in question, maybe my meeting. And here we go. This would be the one I think we might be able to spend some time on. How do we reasonably navigate the projections of belief and value onto space, especially public spaces, with our conflicting beliefs and what's going on in our country now? How do we bring this into the marketplace, into the public spaces of our public life? How might we do that? Any thoughts on that? You want to go first, Janine, and then
You gotta go first.
you go first.
I think that, but I will give just a general answer. I don't want to go again through this endless drought policy.
General will be fine.
Yeah, because, first, you are not as special as you think here in the United States. You have Trump. In Europe, you have many other monsters. So, for me, there are 2 key questions here. First, don't just focus on Trump. Ask yourself the reaction to what is Trump. That was the real idea behind the provocation of mine, which brought me so much trouble when I say vote for Trump. Of course, Trump is a monster. What I wanted to say is never forget that Trump is a symptom of something. If you just fight Trump, it's like what in medicine they call symptomatology. It doesn't. So we have to address other points like neoliberal capitalism, for example. If we don't address those points, then we are caught in this game of just keeping the excess out Trump, but the basic reproduces itself. Why God here? For me, God stands not for that, especially in your sense of cloud. For that, let's call it naively margin of uncertainty. For way too much time, almost 200 years, the left thought it has a definitive, let's call it cognitive mapping. Revolution will look like this and so on and so on. If we have anything to learn from the 20th century, is that you can have a radical, wonderful, emancipatory project, but it can turn wrong in a horrifying way. We never will have this self-transparency, which was the hope of all great revolutionaries, Marx, Lenin, and so on. We do something and we know what we are doing. No, we don't. God is for me this minimum of safety walls, that the situation is open. We don't write a train of history, you know, the situation is open, and we feel this in a palpable way today. I was with people in Occupy Wall Street and all around, and I was just asking them a stupid question. What do you really want? It's incredible how, not only they didn't know, but are you aware in what crazy world we live today? On the one hand, the only parties that still risk to do something for ordinary workers are, at least in Europe, right-wing anti-immigrant parties. On the other hand, the irony of Syria, if you want a really efficient, most brutal austerity program, give power to radical left and they will do it. In this disorientation, the first gesture is to accept this disorientation. There is no, and this is for me God. God is for me not so much a positive entity, but as a guy who I honor to call my friend Rowan Williams said, it's this basic feeling that this world is somehow out of joint, confused, and just this openness of the situation. That would also be for me the first one, religion in politics. It's a kind of it can be the worst religious dimension of politics in the sense of religious fundamentalism, but it can be this opening. God means no, we don't fully know, be careful, things can go wrong. This is for me the proper religious dimension. Yeah.
Just one little point. It is the way the universe unfolds. It is when you get into quantum mechanics. There's waves when you become particles. It's all radically open. And we know we too are radically open people. I'm sure that's what brings us here tonight, is to be able to listen to each other, radical openness. Would you want to say something about that? About particles?
I would be
Okay. I will dance it in a different way. This will be clear. And go back to say the same thing that I was saying when I was dancing, which is that I think we walk around the world behead. That we separate our mind from our body, and that our body is just a vehicle for carrying around our thoughts and our ideas and our will. And when we do that, we are exploiting our own body. I don't know why we cut it off. Maybe because we have feelings in the body that we don't want to feel, that the body is telling us things that we can't handle. But I think that if you are exploiting your body, then it's not a big leap to think you're going to exploit other bodies. And if you exploit other bodies, it's not a big leap to think that you exploit the environment.
Thank you. Thank you, Žižek. Thank you, Janine, and thank you, all of you, for being here tonight in this wonderful, holy space.
You are not a true again. You know what they want to hear.
What?
That you thank yourself.
That I what?
That you thank yourself.
Well, I was hoping you'd do that.
You got it.
Thank you guys again for this inspiring talk. I'm Marissa Masrier-Katz, I'm the Director of Media Initiatives at Creative Time, and I just want to let you all know that our second talk will be happening June 14th at the Lower East Side Girls Club, and it's titled, Is There a New Battle of the Sexes? It will be featuring poet Eileen Miles in conversation with Jezebel founding editor Anna Holmes, with a wonderful performance from J.D. Sampson of the Tigre. So we do hope you'll come. It's June 14th, and tickets will be on sale soon. So thank you so much, and good night.